Let's talk now about an ILS, or Instrument Landing System, to get us into the airport. With an instrument landing system, what you'll have on the runway is two separate transmitters, a localizer transmitter and a glide slope transmitter. What the localizer transmitter is giving you is the left-right guidance to get you in on the center line of the runway. And the glide slope is giving you the descent guidance to get you down to the runway threshold in the clouds. Notice that it's kind of like a funnel going down towards the runway, and that's going to get, those courses are going to get more and more sensitive as you get closer to the airport runway. That's why an ILS is so precise, but also why it's a little bit tough to fly. Now, unlike a VOR, the localizer only transmits one course on it. So it doesn't make any difference what you set in your omni-bearing selector when you're flying a localizer course. The needle will simply center when you are in the center of that localizer course. It's automatic and you don't have any control over it. When you're flying the front course heading, when you're flying the front course part of the approach, the one with all the goodies on it and nice low minimums and so on, the shaded side of the localizer is going to be on your right. And that doesn't really matter as far as the actual flying is concerned, but it will matter to you to know that when you look at some orientation questions on the test, trying to figure out where you are on the localizer. The shaded side will be on the right. Now, the localizer is a lot more sensitive a transmitter than the VOR transmitter is. The width of the localizer is only 5 degrees wide total. That means that it's only 2.5 degrees either side of the center line. That's why when you're tracking inbound on the localizer, you want to try and figure out what the wind conditions are before you get to the outer marker. And then for the rest of the approach, you want to try and hold no more or make no more than about 2-degree corrections as far as your heading is concerned. So when you're tracking inbound on the localizer, try and figure out the wind very quickly and try and make your heading corrections no more than 2 degrees from the outer marker inbound, because as sensitive as that localizer is, you're going to be just wiggling back and forth all over it if you take very much of a correction at all. Now, the glide slope gives you your descent guidance. The localizer gives you your right-left guidance to get to the runway. But how do you know how far away from that airport runway you are? If they have DME on the localizer, and some approaches do, and you have DME in the airplane, then you can get DME readings to tell you what your position is and how your progress is. But the more common way to do it is by marker beacons. And what marker beacons are is little low-powered transmitters located along the approach course as you're flying into the airport runway on the localizer. And by telling which marker beacon you're flying over, you know approximately how far you are from the airport runway and how you're progressing as far as that approach is concerned. Now, there are 2 marker beacons that are standard on an ILS approach. There is one that is optional that you sometimes find, but very often do not. The one that's furthest from the runway is the outer marker, and when you receive that on the marker beacon receiver in your airplane, it's going to have a blue light. It's going to illuminate the blue light. The one that is closer to the runway is going to be the middle marker. By the way, the outer marker will usually be roughly 5 miles out. The middle marker, which is closer, is going to light the amber light on your 3-light marker beacon receiver. Those 2 are standard, and you would expect to find them on an ILS approach. Some approaches have an inner marker at it. If they have an inner marker, it'll be right about at the threshold of the runway, but not very many of them have it. And the inner marker, if they have it, would light the white light on the 3-light marker beacon receiver in your airplane. So what are you going to see and hear as you fly over these marker beacons en route to the runway? When you fly over the outer marker, the blue light will go off, and what you're going to hear is dashes. When you fly over the middle marker, the amber light will go off, and what you're going to hear is dash dot, dash dot, dash dot. If they have an inner marker, when you fly over the inner marker, you're going to see the white light go off, and you're going to hear a series of dots. Now, would you believe that the FAA is going to ask you the frequency of the dots that you're going to hear on the inner marker? Now remember, what you're going to be receiving them on is the 3-light marker beacon receiver in the airplane. It has a light, a blue light for the outer marker, an amber light for the middle marker, a white light for the inner marker. And the inner marker, the FAA wants you to know, if they have it, you're going to hear a sequence of 6 dots per second, and you're going to have a flashing white light. The 6 dots per second is something to remember. So take a look at figure 73.